The likely overturn of Roe versus Wade will change many important things about the pro life movement, but not all. The Roe and Casey decisions will be the default to which states can then change. This has a lot more upside than downside. It means that state governments will be the new fulcrum of the fight. But we have to be aware as well there will still be a powerful abortion lobby. That means that we need a strong but different pro life movement. The remaining need for conservative Inc., a system of nonprofits based in the Beltway that at best do some useful lobbying, at worst just kind of eat money and ask you to sign petitions, will largely be unnecessary. That money and energy will need to go to the grassroots. Crisis pregnancy centers and maternity homes will definitely be more important than ever for a variety of reasons, because they're likely to have more clients, because they're likely to be under renewed, even more intense attack in many quarters, and because, frankly, the success of pro life alternatives to the abortion industry will be in very large part the measure of success for a pro Roe versus Wade America, and may well decide whether we make a new post abortion reality for America or whether the culture of death overcomes it. State political activism will be more important and must adapt to even more different conditions than heretofore has been the case. The difference between laws in more pro life and more pro choice states is going to be even wider, that's for sure. Again, the upside of that is much greater than the downside, given that the status quo is so pro abortion. However, we need to be ready for the fact that in one state, the fight may be about, the criminalization of pro-life activity, more intense than ever, as pro-abortion, politician-run states will look for even new and more extreme ways to satisfy an angry abortion lobby by, putting little ladies with rosaries in jail, whatever they have to do to show that they're doing something about this new crisis on their hands. At the same time, there may be other states where we may enjoy so much success as to be looking at perhaps repealing the medical licenses of abortionists. It's going to take a lot of juggling to keep track of states with such different landscapes for the pro-life fight, and we have to be prepared for that. We're going to need the young need a new pro-life pitch as well. Most youth, these days are convinced that the unborn child is alive, thanks in large part to the ubiquity of ultrasounds, but frequently they don't act on it. They frequently, although they consider themselves pro-life, vote for pro-abortion politicians. They may even consider their pro-life beliefs a purely personal belief that wouldn't even affect what advice they give to other people in a purely private setting. We have to make clear that being pro-life isn't just personal. The public square will never be neutral. It hasn't been, and that will be even more blatantly obvious in all likelihood in the coming years. We have to make clear to an intentionally pro-life generation of youth, they sincerely consider themselves that, and there's a lot of hope there, that abortionists want them childless, eternally adolescent, worker bees, and consumers. That's what they want for young people, and we have to be very clear about that. We need to look to countries that have been more active than we've been, frankly, in trying to create pro-life alternatives for the young. Countries like Hungary and Poland that have offered benefits to help young people start families, be married, have kids if they want, many kids. And frankly, most of the world is underpopulated now. There's a negative population growth rate in most of the world, and that's only going to continue, certainly including the United States. We have to make it easier for young people who want to. It's not about forcing anyone. It's about facilitating all the young people who do want to start families and have fruitful families if they wish, with even many children. We need that, even beyond the moral level, on a practical level. Who's going to pay for Social Security and pensions? We need to help young people who desire to, and I think most of them do, be able to have the families they want. We also need to highlight more personal stories, reason, and natural law to supplement the often faith-based arguments that tend to drive the pro-life movement. As a believing Roman Catholic Christian, I'm certainly not shying away from the religious dimension, and we need to be proud of our faith, not ashamed of it. But we also have to be aware that today's generation of young adults, certainly in the West, are more widely uh, either sort of believe in some kind of life force but not an organized religion, or don't believe in religion at all, or a new age. We have to be, we certainly want them to be believing Christians, but that's distinct from the pro-life argument, and we have to be ready, open for them, whether or not they want to make a decision for Christ today, to welcome them into the pro-life, pro-family movement. So appeals to natural law, which is accessible to anyone, no matter what their religious beliefs or lack thereof are. Reason and personal stories are a good way to make that connection, whether or not there's the religious revival that certainly I and many others in the pro-life movement would like there to be. We also need to highlight new pro-life issues that weren't considered, or certainly weren't considered nearly as much when I was a teenager. Transhumanism, artificial life, artificial death, and the commodification of humanity are not just looming possibilities, but are already being realized as we speak. The manufacturing of life, not even just growing human beings in test tubes, has gone far beyond that. We're getting to the point where it's already being experimented on animal fetuses, like completely creating and developing new life that's been completely manufactured outside of the natural order. Assigned death. Increasingly, countries that have mainstreamed assisted suicide aren't just waiting for people to volunteer for it anymore. Unless you've specifically said that you don't want that, and even sometimes when you do, if you're considered useless, if you're not considered useful anymore, you're assigned death by authorities. In Great Britain, for one, that they're not doing that not even to the elderly, but even to children, with Charlie Gard and many other cases. And beyond this is the blurring of human, animal, and machine, which is the subtext for all of this. The idea that we're all just material. Human life has no unique or sacred quality. We're just stuff, an unusually intelligent lump of meat. And that even that distinction is gone. There's transhumanists are obsessed with the singularity, the merging of human and artificial intelligence. Personally, I think that's a category error. It's not liable to ever happen, but regardless, this drive to blur the distinction between animal and human, even machine and human, is very much among us already, and is going to be a new frontier of pro-life activism that we have to combat. Also, we need to tie the issue of pro-life, where we've been relatively successful with young people, to one where we haven't been so successful, which is the ever-expanding and transforming agenda of the LGBT, etc. movement. Clearly, LGBT is way past just leaving consenting adults alone in their bedroom. It's about the abolition of man and woman, marriage and family. Nor is this more clear than in the new wave of their activism in the trans debate. Talking children into transsexuality, into, often without their parents' consent or even knowledge, irreversible hormone therapy and surgery, things that can't be completely undone, even though 80% of kids who go through that eventually identify with their birth gender and want it reversed. It can't be totally reversed. It leaves them sterilized, and mutilated. And this, frankly, is what a lot of the money behind this movement wants, because a lot of it is about population control. Talking children into becoming trans, having irreversible hormone therapy and surgery is not self-realization, it's self-annihilation. And we have to be very clear about that and not be intimidated by this idea that if we question whatever the LGBTQ, etc. movement says, then somehow that makes us responsible for a teenager somewhere in the world committing suicide. That's nothing but emotional and moral blackmail, and it's a falsity. In fact, higher rates of suicide have to do with the problems that come with these delusions. Delusions often held sincerely, often held by good people. We shouldn't be demonizing anybody. We have to be very clear that this is not about self-realization. It's about self-mutilation, ultimately self-annihilation. We need a pro-life movement for a new generation. We need to take back compassion from the woke left, take back freedom from the culture of death, and take back reason and science from rationalism and scientism. We need to take back the young from a leviathan that means to steal their future and indeed our posterity. Thank you.